The word iota has two distinct meanings. As a noun, 1, a tiny or scarcely detectable amount. 2, the ninth letter of the Greek alphabet.
Welcome to Iota for Monday, July 25th, 2016. I'm Tony Lynn. Iota is a daily news podcast focused on the Internet of Things industry and what's going on there. Welcome back. Week 2. This has been a lot of fun so far. There was a little joke last week about maybe starting a drinking game with all the ums and ahs, but frankly, it's part of learning how to do this. Welcome back. We've got a lot to cover today. There's been a lot of interesting news over the weekend, so let's get right to the headlines. Christina Hines of ReadWrite reports that IoT is revolutionizing waste management. The U.S. generates nearly 230 trillion tons of trash each year, 4.6 pounds per person per day. Companies are using remote sensors in creative ways to make waste management more efficient. Smart Bin uses sensors to see what bins are full and ready to be picked up. They basically do this by having a sensor that sees how full the bins are so that they don't have to send trucks out to half full bins. They waste a lot of money going back and forth, particularly when they don't need to. Secondarily, they're also using smart routing to help plan the route to find the most efficient route to pick up the bins. What this means is that as a bin reports that it is full, that needs to be picked up, then the computer basically figures out what is the fastest, smartest route to go pick up all the ones that are currently ready to go. They then schedule it, and the driver does what he needs to do. It's actually pretty smart. Ironically, there was another, and I don't think I put it into the lineup. There was another discussion about trash, and there's another company that's building actually smart bins for inside of corporations so that they don't send a janitor to pick up it's very similar methodology, but it's the reason why I didn't put it in the show notes. There was no reason to do two. The next story is the weather company plans to use IoT to provide weather data to underserved areas. They have been doing this since 2001 with the personal weather station is provided by Weather Underground. So did you understand the Weather Channel is, or Weather Company is, an Atlanta company? I actually have got some good friends that have worked there at some point in their career. They were purchased by IBM recently. And in fact, I think the Weather Company purchased Weather Underground that was providing the personal weather stations. They're planning on further expanding this, the PWS worldwide, and they're going to use the IBM's Watson IoT platform to help analyze the data. And I even remember this from even before 2001, where schools were putting in these stations, but the problem with those stations were that they weren't connected to the internet. With the PWS, they're actually connected up, can generate tons of data around the weather and the climate that might be going on. Actually helps meteorologists be a little bit more proactive in some of their early warnings, particularly when it comes to devastating storms such as tornadoes. I'm curious how they might start doing something like this in the ocean, help maybe predict hurricanes a little bit better. I know that there is some technologies out there now where they're actively monitoring the water levels. I just don't know how they're doing it. I'll find out and get back to you. Donald Power of ReadWrite reports that Intel's profits are down 51% this quarter as compared to the same period of last year. This is blamed on their current internal shift to IoT. Now, let me explain a little bit more about what's going on. Intel, obviously the chip maker, probably has made the chip that's inside of your computer. I notice the one that's inside mine. They're starting to realize that they're getting their lunch eaten, particularly by ARM. And they want to jump on this before it becomes too late. This is actually kind of evidenced by last week's news of SoftBank buying ARM for that very purpose. Right now, all IoT devices are pretty much ARM-based from a chip perspective anyway. So Intel is now trying to capitalize on that. And what they've done is they've started an internal restructuring of their entire business line. I think they laid off something like 12,000 employees over the past several months. They are turning the ship, if you will, and currently they it's hurting them, but their expectations is that by making the ship turn now, that they'll actually be a lot better off in the long run, and they actually expect profits to be up in Q3 and then again in Q4. So we'll see. We'll keep our eyes on this and watch this as we go. Engineering 360 reports that Bosch is launching its own cloud network for IoT. The electronics company already has more than 5 million devices connected. This is a natural extension of what they currently do. So Bosch is they're an electronics manufacturer, very similar to, say, Pioneer or RCA or whatever you might already have is maybe like a audio receiver that you have in your house. Bosch also does like tools, so they're making a wide array of electronics as it is, and now what they've done is started connecting them up. I don't really know where they're going with this. I do think that it's this is yet another player in the space, and they are posed to do something with it because they've already got all the devices themselves that they manufacture. It almost sounds a little bit like they're too closed off from the standpoint of this may be a little bit more Apple-esque, that you only have access to them if you continue to buy their devices. And I don't know that that's the case. If it is, then that's probably too bad. What we really need is more connectivity across manufacturers, not a full suite within one. But I don't know. We'll see how this goes. It would be very interesting to figure out if Bosch's IoT system would talk to, say, Apple's, which would talk to any of the others that exist. Bosch is, they're planning. They want to be in the smart home player. They want to do that pretty heavily. The website also mentioned that they were talking about doing things for the farmers, and I guess they provide a lot of the electronics for them as well. I'll at least be interested to see what they come up with, but until then, that's as it is. I'm going to start a new section this week instead of necessarily doing a discussion story. Discussions, I think, are great if I've got someone to bounce ideas off of and we can have a actual discussion back and forth. Me doing a discussion by myself probably is not as fun for you. And by the way, thanks for all of you that did come and show up last week. Our fourth show of the week, our last show of the week actually was, I don't know, we had some true audience, which was great. So welcome and stick around. We're going to be having more fun as we go. So what I want to do is I want to create a section just called the Developers Corner, if you will, and where we'll talk a little bit each week or each day about what might be out there for developers in order to make their name, so to speak. How can you get involved in this? I also think that I might add a couple of other sections as well, maybe one just on boards, since they're like they're like rabbits right now. They're everywhere. And maybe start to talk about these things a little bit to get everyone informed. If you are a C-level person in your company, you're trying to figure out how to get involved in IoT, and then we need a little bit of information about that. But if you're a developer and you're trying to figure out how to break in, let's talk about that as well. Let's give a little bit of information for each type and go from there. But today I wanted to talk about developers and how do you get involved in development. My pick of the day is from rcrwireless.com. They have a story in there where they're actually talking about how would you break into the IoT side of the house. Now, the interesting thing for everyone to know is that they're expecting there'll be about 4 times as many devices in 2020 that are IoT based than currently we have for wireless. It's incredible the amount of growth it's going to be. And the interesting thing about that is that for every device that exists, there is at least 3 levels of software coding that have to go on. There's the embedded software that has to happen on the device itself. There is the data exchange, which in some cases is, you're using an existing platform or existing network. Maybe you build your own set of REST-based APIs in order to exchange stuff back and forth. Maybe it's microservices. It doesn't really matter what it is, but that has to be coded as well. And then in a minimum, there has to be some form of data consumption, and whether there's a layer of analytics built in, i.e. big data, or if there's a mobile app to actually see the results of what this is. So for every device that's out there, there's 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 different layers of software development that have to be done. This is a phenomenal thing for us as software developers, that there's opportunities for us. And so that being the case, there's also a little bit of scarcity. Right now that most people are really focused on mobile development or even desktop development, and the skill sets there don't always translate over into the other. However, there's some good news. According to Information Week, there are currently 11 software languages needed for IoT development. And some of these I've never heard of, but let's go through the list real quick. It's C, C++, Java, JavaScript, Python, Go, Rust, Paracel, B#, Assembler, and Forth. Again, these are because there is a little bit of a scarcity right now, that even if you're a seasoned veteran or you're just someone coming right out of school, maybe you want to focus a little bit on some of these software languages in order to basically create yourself a job. I think my day job is actually, kind of wrapped around this, and we're already starting to see some scarcity out in the market. It would be very interesting from your perspective as a software developer to get involved in it now, and I think you'll have a job for forever. I mean, it's really that level. The secondary thing, once you've decided what to do, and honestly, I think I reported on one last week, and it was one for JavaScript. There's also the ability to actually write embedded software with PHP, which is kind of cool on some of the boards. So get started. It doesn't matter what you pick. Go to Code Academy, learn how to do JavaScript, learn how to do Java, learn how to do C++. Find just some starting point and use that to actually, get into your resume. Switch some of your resume into that you're focused on IoT. And then you'll end up moving into this position. And like I said, the cool thing about IoT development is that it's always fun and cool. There's always something new that's going on. And you need to get started. The second thing that you need to get started is go get you a board. It doesn't matter what the board is, whether it's Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or even like the ones that we talked about, the Omega that we reported on last week. There's plenty of them. Just find one and just get started. I've got my kids here. My youngest son is in the local robotics club. And last year, they basically took an Arduino board and coded it so that it would do some of the things they wanted to do. It was really cool. These are kids. These are 14, 13-year-old kids that are doing this already. Anyone can do it. So again, get started. Well, that's it for today. We're not going to belabor that point too much. Again, if you're enjoying this podcast, please send me feedback at tunamuck@gmail.com. Feel free to visit our website, iota.tunamuck.com. If you really want me to continue and get better and do this more often, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/tunamuck, and go from there. My email address is, again, tunamuck@gmail.com. You can find me at tunamuck on Twitter, or you can see any of the projects at www.tunamuck.com. Until tomorrow, have a good day.